Let's turn to tonight's Legal Eagles for more. Former Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo and Fox News contributor, former Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy. Welcome to you both, gentlemen. Great to have you with us tonight.
See you, Shannon.
Okay, Andy, I'll start with you. This question about Aaron Zebley, the top deputy to former special counsel, showing up. He's going to be sworn in. We don't know what happens from there. What's your take on this arrangement?
Well, I think it's a bad look for Mueller. A lot of the rap on him has been that he was kind of a figurehead here, that he was very staff-directed, and, you know, here we get to the big day where he testifies and looks like he can't do it without help, which is not a good look. As far as the consequence of it, I just think it's all overblown in the sense that if he's restricted, Shannon, to testifying within the four corners of his report, I could sit there and read the report. It doesn't matter if there's 2 guys, 4 guys, however many guys. If his testimony is the report, then it's already a known quantity.
Well, the president tweeted this. He's had a couple of these on this topic tonight. He said, so Robert Mueller has now asked for his longtime never-Trumper lawyer to sit beside him and help with answers. What's this all about? His lawyer represented the, quote, basement server guy who got off free in the crooked Hillary case. This should not be allowed. Rigged witch hunt. Well, our understanding now is it's going to proceed. At least he's going to be sworn in, we think, to the House Intel Committee. We don't know about Judiciary at this point. Meanwhile, John, we also have these issues regarding the fact that Democrats are saying this letter from the Attorney General from the DOJ trying to restrict Mueller is the administration trying to control him. Attorney General Barr says they asked for the guidance. What do you make of that back and forth?
Actually, the letter is tied in with this aide who's going to show up with Mueller, because if Mueller really wants to stay within the 4 corners of the report and not violate Justice Department instructions now about testifying to anything that's executive privileged or law enforcement privilege or so on, he actually needs someone to sit next to him and say, you actually can't talk about that. Or Mueller needs to consult and say, can I answer this question? And I'm someone who's testified before this House Judiciary Committee, and it was about things that I knew about in the government, and I still wanted my counsel there to make sure I didn't violate any Justice Department guidelines, too. The second thing is Mueller is a consummate professional prosecutor. He's not a politician. And so I expect that he will follow the instructions from the Justice Department. He doesn't want his final public act as the special counsel, after having been FBI director and deputy attorney general and a U.S. attorney, to be violating the rules of the very department that he has spent his career serving.
Well, you know, Democrats have said that there's a lot we don't know, even though we've had the 400-page plus report out there. There's been a lot of analysis of it. Congresswoman Jayapal tonight had this to say about why they're having this hearing tomorrow and what Americans could possibly learn.
I think we would have gotten the adequate information out appropriately to the American people, and we would be much farther along. But even with that, I think that there are many Americans across this country who are deeply concerned, and certainly, you know, at least 90 members of Congress who have said that they are in support of formal impeachment proceedings.
She also said there is that the report was intercepted and it was misconstrued. The American people were misled. And Andy she says tomorrow is the opportunity to correct the record.
Look, I just think, Shannon, that the American people were very interested in this investigation as long as there was a realistic possibility that there was a corrupt, collusive scheme between the campaign and a hostile foreign power. Once Mueller himself said that there was not evidence to support that, I think people's interest in general ebbed. And even with, you know, it looks like tomorrow the big deal will be obstruction. That will be the big concentration of the hearing. Equivocal obstruction evidence or an equivocal obstruction of a non-crime under circumstances where no one actually stopped Mueller from conducting the investigation, and for all the ranting and raving, President Trump actually cooperated with the investigation to the point of allowing the White House counsel you know, big access for the prosecutor to the White House counsel. I just don't think people are as interested in this as they were before.
John, I want to give you a quick final word. Of course, we think one of the #1 questions from Democrats is going to be to the special counsel. Would you have recommended indicting or pursuing charges against the president on the issue of obstruction, if not for a legal memo out there that basically says you can't indict a sitting president? How hard do you think he's going to be pressed on that question?
2 quick points. The report answers it pretty clearly. He says, I can't bring an indictment. It's actually up to Attorney General Barr to decide. Attorney General Barr said there's no evidence to prosecute an indictment. Second, the president can't have committed obstruction based on those things if he were a normal person, because only the president could have fired Mueller or fired the attorney general. It's not possible to say if this had been a regular citizen, a non-public official, I would have indicted him, because only the president could have carried out those acts. And third, I don't think the president can be indicted for obstruction for exercising his constitutional authority to fire insubordinate prosecutors.
All right. Our two legal experts, John Yoo and Andy McCarthy, we appreciate your expertise tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks, Shannon.